am thrilled to introduce you guys to Ken. Some of you may recognize Ken because he and his wife and team were faithful to be at a lot of seminars. I'm not going to say anything else because I want to give him a maximum time here. So I'm going to turn the rest of the program here on the Kidney Donor Champions over to Ken.
Well, thank you. I've never had anybody be thrilled to introduce me.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, people will go, he's here again? Anyway, before I start, I just wanted to mention one thing. The first meeting we went to off the list was April of 2025. And the first time I heard the presentation of somebody coming up and talking about they were a champion and what they were doing, I said, I want to be that person. I want to be that person, not because I'm a great public speaker, because I'm horrible. You guys are in for that. But what I knew that if Darcy invited me, that meant that we had found a living kidney donor. And in December 2025, this past year, we got the greatest Christmas gift I asked for. My nephew had a kidney transplant, and he's been doing great ever since. So I all owe you, and everything we're going to talk about tonight is kind of funny because I've stolen from everybody in this room. There isn't an original thought or idea in here, because what we did is from the very beginning, we just went through the training program, we went to all the seminars, we talked to everybody at the tables, so many things that came up, and we just learned so much. So before I get into what we did, and it's just what we did in order to find a living kidney donor, I want to tell you a little bit about Mark, my nephew, because I always like to know, what's somebody's story and where do they come from. Let me see if I can get this thing to work. I guess we're going to have to do it manually. So if you could go to, there you go. Amy's back there working the magic, man. I need as much help as I can get. So Mark was living in New York, my nephew, in 2022. And so let's go to the next slide. And I just want to kind of give you a timeline of his journey. So he found out that he was in end-stage renal failure, and that was in October 2022. And he was in New York. He was trying to get on the transplant list, but he just couldn't get strong enough. He couldn't get stable enough. So what they did was the whole family, we brought him back here to Cincinnati, because Cincinnati is a great, great place to actually get it treated. And within about 6 months, he was able to get on the transplant list, which was great. So he started in 2022, but it took him all the way to 2024 to get on the transplant list. And that's a long, long journey, but I know everybody in this room knows what it's like to wait. It's tough to keep going forward. It's just waiting and waiting. If they told you that, hey, on this date, it's going to be 18 months, you're going to get your kidney, you say, well, that's a long time. But okay, let's buckle up. Let's do this, right? But that's not the way it is. You don't know if it's going on forever, right? So I feel for you. Everybody in this room understands that. It's brutal. But then we found off the list in 2025, and all of a sudden, we had a plan. We knew what we were going to do, and we created a promotional campaign in June. Now, you may say, you guys are kind of slow. You didn't put anything together from April to June. Well, it took us a little while to get organized, to figure out what we were doing. But then in November, a living kidney donor came forward, and we were ecstatic. As I told you, in December, he got his kidney. Next slide, please. So the most important date, however, was April 25th, when we found off the list. Because I will tell you, I will tell anybody this, I don't think we would have ever found a kidney donor if we had not found off the list. So let's move. I just can't, because for the first time, we had a plan. They gave us the tools, and probably one of the biggest things, we didn't feel like we were alone. Now, right now in this room, do you feel like you're alone? No, you feel like there's people here that understand you. Well, they may not understand you personally, but they understand what you're going through, right? And that's so much. And for the first time, as Darcy talked about earlier, there was hope. And we hadn't had hope. It was incredible. So let's move on to the next slide. All we did was what you guys are going through right now. We went through the program, step by step. Did we do everything in the program? No. Step by step, we just picked and choose what was going to work for us, what we thought we could do, and we did it. So I'm going to talk about our tools now, what we came up with, what we decided to use. If I finish this presentation and you say, well, I wouldn't do all those things, that's fine. I can tell you right now, if you've got a printed piece, if you got Facebook, maybe some yard signs, because yard signs make you have to talk to people, and that's awesome. If you have those things, and you reach out to your family and friends and tell them what you need, you can do this. I swear you can do this. So I just like to go down different roads and get involved in things. Sometimes they make it a little more difficult than it needs to be. But Facebook, critical. Great communication tool. What we did is we did flyers. We did 2,000 flyers that were in English, 500 that were in Spanish because we have some people in the family who have ties to Hispanic churches and they're Hispanic, so it worked out really well. We also did postcards. Darcy came up with this idea. She said, why don't you do postcards? And I was, being a brilliant person I said, why would we do postcards? And so, let me tell you, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't even do the flyers. I'd just do the postcards. Because they're smaller, they're thicker, they're easier to use. And what it did, it allowed us to create a story rather than just say, if you go look at Mark's flyer, it's got a story, it's got a picture of his mom, it's got, it's great, but is there any emotional attachment other than a human being needing a kidney? You would think that's all you would need. Well, you kind of need more sometimes. So Mark has a great relationship with his niece, and so my uncle needs a kidney, I need my uncle. People looked at that, they read that, they connected with that. And next slide you'll see that what we would do is when we put these up in businesses or places, we would kind of turn the backside and put it next to it, and everything you needed to know was right there. In addition to that, we did 130 yard signs. Yard signs are absolutely fantastic. They are a pain in the butt. They work great because it forces you to talk to people. You got to say, well, how am I going to, you want me to put up a what? What are you talking about? Oh, I've seen those around. What's that all about? But when you start talking, then people come up to the people as you put your sign in their yard, and they go, "What's that all about?" And then they talk to other people. Then all of a sudden, somebody is calling you, and you didn't even know anything about that person. But they're saying, "Well, how can I help?" Now, I will tell you, there are some people, as you know, that will ask how they can help. But the majority of people aren't going to ask that, right? You have to kind of tell them how they can help. So that's really important. We also did magnetic car signs, but there's no number there because we just, at the end of our run here, so to speak, we did like 20 of those to test them out. If we had to do it over again, we would probably have to do this right from the beginning. It worked out great. Now, we also did a website. I'm not saying you have to do a website at all. I just happen to know how to program a website on Wix.com. One weekend I put it up. And the only reason we really wanted to do that because we wanted to really focus or funnel people to Facebook. But what worked really well is sometimes you're talking to people about donating a kidney or somebody that needs a kidney, and they don't want to ask you too many questions. Because pretty soon you're going to say, you're going to ask me to donate a kidney, aren't you? Now, of course, we're not going to, but they don't know that. Well, so after a few questions, we would say, hey, you know what you could do? If you go to kidneyformark.com, it's got all your answers there. There's a frequently asked questions section. And you gave them a great background about kidney, kidney transplants. And as you can see right here, there were other things there. It told them what Mark's story was. It told them how, they get tested and everything else. So that was an effective tool somewhat. I'm not saying you have to do that, but we did get the responses to that. So that was great. This seems like a really small thing. Darcy, I think, sent maybe Avery, maybe Amy. I don't remember who sent it. They said, hey, why don't you put this in your email? And I thought, well, that's going to look ugly. And then I realized I wanted to look ugly because then everybody's going to read it, right? So I put that on my personal email, and for the last year, I've been sending it out to everybody. And folks that know about Mark, they said, great, because it's a reminder. Oh, yeah, what have you done? Folks that don't, they said, who the heck is this Mark? What's going on? And I talked to them. But probably for me personally, the biggest benefit was the fact that every time I sent an email, I saw that in my signature. And it reminded me, did I do anything for Mark today? Did I talk to somebody? Did I call him? It was just a regular reminder. And some days it would be like, I didn't do that. Other times it wouldn't. So I think that's a great tool. So you got these tools. Those are the ones. There's a lot more. So what do? It doesn't do you any good unless you can have people to use the tools, right? So let me walk you through that. This is just us. So we got Mark, he's got his mom, two of the most quiet human beings on earth. I'm talking quiet. At the end, Liz is out on the street corner waving signs, meeting, greeting people, doing whatever she's doing. Mark's still going, I'm fine. Now, if they were here, I'd be making fun of them, don't worry. Because they would make fun of me for sure. But our nucleus was my niece, Roxanne, who's really an impressive young woman. I mean, she's really, really impressive. She's bright, she's smart, she's got connections, and she's also a prayer warrior. So that was great. And my wife, who's sitting back there at the last table, raise your hand, hon. There you go. She does all the attention. Not like me. Anyway, so she knows a lot of folks. She knows a lot of organizations. She does a lot with churches. And she is connected in a lot of ways, and she's also a motivation for me to keep things rolling. And then there was me. But you look at all those question marks. And I'd love to tell you, every one of those question marks was filled with somebody who was spending 24 hours a day working for us. That is not the case. But we did know that we needed people to work for us. So what we did is we decided to go into the inner sanctum of the family. I know everybody's got different families. One of the problems you always have in a big family, because Mark's from a big family, is that folks, they think everybody else has got it covered. They think, they're going to take care of Mark. I don't have to worry about that. It's all good. But if you talk to them and tell them, and I know, I can't tell you how important it is to invite everybody, as many people as you can. Invite your friends. Talk to them. Let them know what's going on. So Ann and I had an open house for a meeting. Mark and Liz were there. And this is what we did next. So the first thing, we had 17 people in person. We had 11 people via Zoom. And it wasn't very sophisticated. It was me walking around with a computer like this. Going like, you're talking? I'm going to go. Here you go. And I think people were kind of dizzy by the end of it. But we had 28 people attend. 28 people. Did all 28 people step on board and say, yeah, let's do it? No. But what we wanted to find out was who of that 28 would, right? Hey, we told people right from the beginning, we understand you got a lot of other things going on in your life, but if you can give us some time, we'd really appreciate it. And so what we did is we had three things we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about our objectives for the meeting. We wanted to say, hey, where's Mark at? Because a lot of people said, hey, he looks great. He can't be sick. He's not sick. He looks fantastic. And then they started finding out how sick he was. And then the other thing that came up, they said, what was he doing that caused him to have this problem? They thought like maybe he was doing drugs or he was doing something else. And yeah, he had a problem. He had bad genes. That was his problem. A lot of people have that. So second thing was we wrote Darcy into coming in and doing an overview of what we were doing. And then we gave him an action plan. Because every time you do something, you got to have an action plan, right? So let's talk about our action plan. Thing I want to say is, again, I mentioned this from the very beginning. People, you have to tell them how they can help. You really do. You got to tell them. So that's fine. Sorry, I threw a curveball on you there. So the next thing that we did is we said, hey, everybody's leaving this meeting today. 25 flyers, 25 postcards, 3 yard signs, and a flyer from off the list. But did we tell them what to do with those? Yes, we did. So we said, okay, and we told them, hey, you can do whatever you want. You may have a better idea than we got. That's fine. But I'm not having you leave here and say, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't want these end up in your basement, right? So we said, here's an idea. Put one in your yard. Put one in the neighbor's yard. then go to an organization, a church, or whoever else, and ask them, get their permission, and see if they'll let you put up a sign. Then we also talked about post. I don't want to get into too much detail because we only got so much time. We talked about how to get everybody. The focus was to get everybody the Kidney for Mark's Facebook, his Facebook account. And then in addition to that, probably the most successful thing that we did, if you look on the next slide, is that you've heard this before. I've heard it from everybody in this room. Is that has presented. It's talked about go to 5 businesses. These are businesses you're already giving business to. And you ask them to say, hey, can you put up one of our signs? Put up one of our postcards. And then we take a photo of them, right? This is all stuff I learned in this very room, actually. And when we do that, we would say, okay, we can do that. And we're going to put that on Facebook. We're going to say, hey, here's support Mark. Examples here. We were up at Skyline, and Ann went up and said, hey, can we put up our poster or a sign? And they said, sure. And I said, well, can we get a picture because we want to put it on Facebook? We shut down Skyline for 3 whole minutes. It was a feeling of power. Nicest kid there was her manager. Of course, my age, everybody looks like a young guy. I thought he was in grade school. But at any rate, so that's what we did. So at the end of this, we said, okay, 30 days we're going to have a Zoom meeting follow up. Now that was the proof in the pudding. Who's going to get on that Zoom call and tell me what they did? And who's going to? So we had a great response. We had a really good response. Did I have 28 people? No. I had about 12 people. But those were people that were willing to help. Now all of a sudden, I know who's willing to help. Some people say, hey, I can't do this. They talked about the problems they ran into, what they could, what they couldn't do, and things like that. So I want to spend just a little bit of time now just kind of going through Facebook, because every time I sit at a round table here, people say, man, I get burned out on Facebook. I'm trying to come up with stuff every week, every day, every week, whatever. And I can't, it doesn't really matter so much what you put up as long as you put something up, because it reminds people. So here's some things that we did. We started this yard sign competition in the family with friends. And every time they put in a yard sign, I don't care whose house it was, they take a picture, they post it, they send it to me, we put it on Mark's website, and then people go, they got a yard sign, I got to get another yard sign out there. So we made a little bit of a competition. And one of the things that also is now, off the list was really posting 3 times a week for us, right? But one of the things that they did, that was super helpful, but we also wanted to have a serious side to it of our own. If you look at the center picture here, this is 1 week's worth of boxes, right? And everybody knows. Yeah, you know, right? Yeah, and all these people in the room here know, but the rest of the folks don't. They're like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah, we recycle those every single week, for dialysis. And that made a huge, we got more comments from people. I can't believe it. We see Mark in a hospital bed. We see Mark at DaVita. No comment. We could put boxes. So it was incredible, because all of a sudden it just made it real. Now, we also had some fun with Mark. So now some people say, well, gee, I can't do anything like that because that would be AI. Literally, we've chat GPT to, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. Just having fun with it. Just having a good time. So, and even the next slide, I did ask Mark. I did ask Mark's permission for that one. His response was, you crazy. I said, hey, it's not my picture that's going to be up there. All right, now, the reason this picture's here, and I just want to go on record, I was wearing a fat suit. I just want you to know. There's been some talk. I was definitely wearing a fat suit. We kind of got to the point where we're a couple months into this. We're running our promotional campaign, and all of a sudden, I just noticed, and Ann noticed, and we were looking at it, and we're going like, we're losing a little bit of momentum, People aren't quite clicking, so how can we get some interest now? Well, Darcy, it's her fault. Most things are. What she did, once upon one of the meetings, she said, we had one champion that got a sandwich sign, and he stood on the corner and got attention. He got on the news. Well, an opportunity to get on the news. I mean, how could I pass that up? So what we did is we did this, and then and Darcy was kind enough to get the Channel 12 to come out. Next slide, please. And I think she was having fun making fun of me. I really, Liz Bonus is a genius, because I don't want to take too much time, but that day, being as bright as I am, as intelligent, I said, hey, the fat suit's got a fan in it. It's 97 degrees, but I'll be cool. I was not cool. It was not cool at all. I was about an hour in, I'm drinking water, I can't talk, I can't do anything. Guess when the news arrived?
You couldn't talk.
Yeah, I can't talk now, so it was incredible. I don't know how she pieced together that interview. She's a genius. And then, fortunately, they interviewed Mark, and he saved the day. And he did a really great job. So we said, oh, okay. However, 2 months later, we noticed the same thing. We're losing momentum. How can we do that? Well, the mistake we made with Superman was the fact that we did it one time on a Saturday at 10 o'clock. We lived in Springfield Township, so we were in Finneytown at the corner of Galveston and Winton Roads. A lot of traffic, but we did it one time. We said, we're not following our own rules. We're not being consistent. What if we went to the same place at the same time every Saturday and did the same thing? Well, people were just driving by honking and stopping. I was kissing babies. I was running for office. Grandma's literally, I am not lying. Grandma's stopped, pulled into the Walgreens, brought their grandkids over, and I listened to what they wanted for Christmas. No, I'm serious. It was really cool. I was high-fiving. It was amazing. I got to tell a story of my wife, though. The first time we did this, first time my wife was on the street corner. So, thank you. When she was waving at cars, I got to tell the son, she was like this. By the end of this, she's waving. She's talking to people, are blowing their horn. They're giving her prayer signs because they knew we were there over and over. Now we did this. Next slide, please. We did this for about 6 weeks, and the repetition was great. And we were doing this while we knew Mark had a living kidney donor, because we didn't want something to happen. We couldn't just say, we're not going to assume this is going to happen. We're going to assume something's going to fall through. So we wanted to keep doing it, and we did. And it got a tremendous response. And I'm telling you, one of the things we're going to see later in the summary is you have to let people surprise you. But there's one person that showed up, didn't show up for anything that we were doing, but every Saturday he drove all the way across town and was there, waving his sign, saying, hey, this is my corner, this is what I'm working. And it just, people surprise you. So don't be afraid to ask people for help. Next slide, please. Probably the one more thing, and I think this is our strongest tool, is prayer. Now, I'm just telling you what we did. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just saying this is what we did. And, of course, I would tell you should pray. But, absolutely. But one of the things that's kind of interesting is that when we were over at the hospital and Mark was having his transplant surgery, we were there for 4.5 hours. And during those 4.5 hours, my wife, she had her phone real low. But all I could hear was beep, beep, beep. I said, what is going on over there? And she said, it's just people calling, saying they're praying. I can't tell you how many people, and how good that made Liz, Mark's mom, feel to know. Now, she had people calling her too. I got a few business calls. That's all I got. But they got, so we think prayer is a very important part of this. And the answer to our prayers, obviously, is when we got the living kidney donor. So let me just finish with these thoughts. Again, this is what we did. If I leave here and you say, hey, I don't want to make an idiot out of myself, then don't make an idiot out of it. Don't be afraid. Just say, okay, I'm not going to do that. Find somebody who will. How many times you tell me you were baking brownies or cooking and you just post that on Facebook? And I thought, like, yeah, man, and that makes it so real. She's just doing something she does. But for his son, it just made a big difference, and it just stuck, Just be yourself. Figure out what works for you. It isn't what, I like to have fun. I like to have a good time. I'm sure you do too, but this is a serious topic. At the same time, you got to keep moving forward. So decide what works for you. You start with the tools that Off-the-List gives you. Obviously, you have to tell people how they can help. You have to tell them. You absolutely have to tell them. And then let people surprise you, like the person that we talked about. Like one of the things that happened when we had our family meeting is we live on a cul-de-sac. And so when people were driving in, all the way down on the right side of the street, we had yard signs in everybody's yards, every single yard. On the left side, no yard signs. And so when we got finished with our meeting, I said, do you know why there's no yard signs on the left side of the street? And they said, no, why? I said, because we didn't ask them. If we'd have asked them, every one of those people would have put up here. Well, there was one guy, we're not so sure about him. But everybody else would have put up a yard sign. But if you don't ask, they're not going to do it. And people were like, oh, no, please, please. And then I said, well, we got all these yard signs. I'm going to move some of these around. I had never even known, you're leaving that there. I want to be part of this. So that was really great. And then consistency. Darcy, I don't mean to just totally say the same thing she said, but you have to do it over and over and over. And I can really relate to you how difficult that is. When you don't know where the end is, right? You don't know when you're going to get that living table. You don't know. But you just keep doing it. So that's very important. Keep doing it over and over. Occasionally, if you got a couple of people to work with, you got to motivate them. You got to let them talk and say, yeah, hey, what's happening? What's going on? But that's what we did. We said, okay, how can we fix it? And this is the kind of things we came up with. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Darcy may have blocked my number by now, but I call her a lot. Probably shouldn't. But now I'm going to call Amy all the time. Amy, she's already like, oh my goodness. So, but they come up with answers when things come up. And it's very, very helpful. I can't tell you how important it was to go to these meetings. Now, because no matter who was presented, even today, I bet there's one or two things that you might take away from this meeting. But I know that every meeting we went to, we took away something that made a huge, huge difference. We didn't even know it at the time. Ann and I would be talking, and we'd go, oh, yeah, I forgot, that's a great idea. And she would hear things that I didn't hear, so it was great. And I will finish with this, is that what do you do when you feel like all hope is lost? Now, I'm going to sort of beat you in. Was that an exclamation mark? I don't know. Usually they just go like this, tell me to cut it. I've never had anybody but the biggest thing I think that we learned is you just remember you're not alone. Because when we first came to off the list, they welcomed us with open arms. They listened to us. And you know how crazy it is to be in this weird position that you're in? And you've got people that you're talking to that know exactly, maybe not everything, but almost exactly what you're going through. Or you've got people that have been through it and come out on the other side successful. It is such a gift. And I would say that, if you give me the next slide, appreciate it. Off the list is how you get through those times with no hope. So if you got any questions, I'm not saying that I have answers, but I will attempt to answer anything you ask. Speechless. That's what I'm taking away from this.
Oh, here, wait. I'm going to run a microphone over to Circle.
I just got a question about the postcards. Like, how did you go about with the addresses, or who would you mail them out to?
We did very little mailing. We mailed to some people that we wanted to reach, and people to ask for questions. But everything we pretty much did digitally. The postcards we used when we were handing them out, when we were talking to people, because if you hand somebody out a flyer, it's kind of loose and fly, but it's a little got more substance to it, and people, for some reason, don't throw them away. So we didn't really do very much mailing, But if we did, we just put a stamp on it and put it, mailed it, because on the back, if you see the other side, there's this place. It's standard, just standard layout for a postcard.
Okay, I was just wondering if you did it random, like just how you get things in the mail from wherever. And I just didn't know how.
No, we didn't just send them to people randomly. We tried to qualify people or think, reach out to folks that we thought we knew. Our random thing, I think, is we're on the street corner because that's pretty random. But what can I say? Yes, we put them up in businesses. But yes, yeah. And
Well, and one thing I would just add, Ken, to Rosemary's, we have had a family that actually we worked through a I don't know what kind of company you want to call them, and they paid to pull zip codes and pull, right? So it was it was targeted, but it was like 5,000 postcards went out to a certain area, and that was something that family wanted to do, and they paid to do that, right? And so then it hit a bunch of mailboxes of people they didn't know. Yeah.
The other thing is, if you send out mailers and stuff, just make sure you put a QR code on everything.
Yeah.
In case people write to your face.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add, we can help with all that kind of stuff. So some of you guys might be, newer in the program or working through the steps, but that is a whole step in our Together Toward Transplant program, are those print materials. And so postcards and flyers and car decals and yard signs and all of that, we actually work with a printing company out of Indianapolis. And we've created templates with them, we've created designs, etc., and has QR codes and has phone numbers and, all that stuff. And, that's a tool for you guys. It's a service you can use. We do get wholesale pricing, so, the company doesn't make any money off of it. They're just kind of like the in between. You don't have to use them, right? But we will get you to that step if you're not there yet. And just to add to, we do have a Warrior Fund. Our Warrior Fund, anyone can apply for. There are only 2 questions that we ask on the form, and that is a pool of money that we can give to people if they qualify for that, and that actually will give you a whole marketing package, okay, at no cost to you if you qualify for that. So that's a way we try to help as well, because we know those materials can add up, right, Ken?
Yes, they can.
Of getting those materials, yeah. Yeah.
Everything we sent out had a QR code on it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it showed up on the postcard, but it did have a QR. But great point.
Yep.
Great point, because
Yep.
that way they can find you in a hurry.
Yep.
Somebody,
Yeah, I was just back to the postal. Oh, I don't do that. Unless you guys.
Yeah, just because it does get hard sometimes to hear. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm just wondering back to the postal service. Is it illegal to put a postcard in and then close the mailbox?
Oh, so like you mean like in a neighborhood or something like that?
Correct.
I don't know, but I did it.
In my mailbox.
Yeah.
Where they just wrote it on a piece of paper.
Yeah. And I did it with like a letter, a flyer, and I dropped it in all of my neighbors' mailboxes, and I know people do that.
Has anybody here worked for the postal service?
I worked for I was a manager of property. It's actually illegal, but
it is illegal.
you can stick something like on the flag outside the mailbox.
You know how they hang
You don't know who's
newspapers?
going to get there first.
Like they'll have it in a bag and then they'll just find the mail to hook it to. That's legal, but
Putting something inside.
yeah.
They have to catch me.
Or you could do like, so the other day in my neighborhood, like a tree service had come around. They had Ziploc bags and they had rocks in there with a little postcard. And so they were all dropped by all of the mailboxes, so they didn't blow away. And I was like, oh, okay, well. So there's workarounds. I guess, yeah, okay, so I guess it was illegal what I did. So off the record.
Is that how you got off the list name? Off the record?
Thank you for bringing that up, though. That's a good question.
The quote I'm taking away from this evening is, they have to catch me first.
We ask for forgiveness later, right? You need
That's exactly right.
Got me handcuffed on.
That's a pretty, I don't know, ballsy move if you're looking for kidney donor. So I'll just say that. There'll probably be 3 people. Not in this one. Anything else that I could?
I got it.
Oh, yeah, here.
The person that donated, Mark, where did they get their information so they could get in contact with you? Was it the yard sign?
That is an incredibly great question. I would like to have the answer to that. No, we don't know who the anonymous donor is. We don't know how they found out about it. It's driving me crazy.
And Darcy crazy.
And Darcy. I don't need to know who it is because I just respect anybody that does that. It restores your faith in mankind. And there's so many people here that have done that, it's very unique, special people. And it just makes you feel sick. But I would like to know. Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, because we might be a fraud, really. We just might be a fake. We don't know. But we do know that a lot of the things that we did really made Mark and his mom realize that they weren't alone. They realized that people cared. They knew that people were out there. And I think, it's like we got lucky. But the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's, sometimes you just fall into it. But I think that that's the way I look at it. Hopefully we'll get an answer someday.
Are you saying Mark never met the person that
No.
we did?
No one has
They all
any.
went through the 585 number.
Right.
The transplant.
I have no idea.
Yep.
Even after, I tried to sneak one in after the surgery. I asked the surgeon, I said, which is true, I didn't really want to know who was the donor. I just wanted to know if they were okay. And, we said, so he said, well, I can't tell you because that happened in another operating room.
Yeah.
And they brought the kidney down to me. And I just looked at him. He said, okay, I will tell you this. If there was a problem, I would have heard about it. I haven't heard anything. So that's all I would really want to do. That's as close as we got, to figure that out. I mean, we did go around the waiting room asking people why they were there, but.
And we have another family in here that they did that. Well, somebody was in surgery. But yeah, we have 3 or 4 people that we have no idea who the donor, they're completely anonymous. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. But it would be great to know. But I think the one thing to remember, and we do talk about this as we go through this process, is that when you talk, and there are a number of living donors in here, and you will get to hear from more living donors in April and on, but one common thread there is that a lot of times it's not one thing that they saw. Right? So it's one thing that they saw, and then maybe they saw something else, and then maybe they saw something else, and then they were following the page. In the marketing world, we call that multiple touches. And this is a big ask. We're not asking somebody just to go buy a bottle of water. So we can't really expect, while there are some people that will see something and make that call, we have to realize that people are likely seeing things, again, in lots of different places. And it could be that they saw something for Mark, but then also saw a news story on something else. That's still a touch, right? And they're still learning. And some of you guys have heard from, we do have a donor. It was before off the list. I met her after my dad was transplanted. She followed somebody's Facebook page for close to 18 months. And, kind of continue okay, I'm not sure, right? She's also a freelance writer. And she got a call from Johns Hopkins. And guess what? They asked her if she would do some research on organ donation and living kidney donation. So through that process, she's still watching this Facebook page, and she ended up making the call and was a perfect match. Right? Now, had that family stopped posting, would she have been a donor? Who knows? A year later, her husband became a donor, altruistically, which means he just donated, said, I just give my kidney to whoever needs it, never met the person. So that just shows you the power of, right, that consistency and exactly what Ken's talking about. There could be somebody that saw Ken as, Santa Claus, but then they were like, well, let's also check out the page. Maybe they saw something on the news. All of this, right, all works together.
Yeah, I did have a couple of people offer therapy. But
For you or somebody else?
For me. Oh, definitely for me.
Ken, somebody's asking about the anonymous donor, and you had those two, reasons why people don't want to be revealed.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but yeah, because all of a sudden, you could be, well, what if you don't like the person you donated the kidney to? What if you get kind of, all of a sudden you're part of their family now and you don't really want to, I mean, they're maybe nice people, but it's just like, I don't want to feel responsible for them for the rest of my life. There's those reasons. And then at the same time, some people just, you could answer this much better than me, but some people just don't want that attention. That's not why I did this. I didn't do this for attention. I did this because I wanted to and I feel good about it. We just had of course I know she's here. We just had a conversation before we started about that. So, it was, there she is. So there's a lot of reasons and you gotta respect that, obviously. However, I bet everybody that's looking for a kidney donor would gladly accept an anonymous kidney donor, right?
Yeah. And the cool thing is that you can write a letter, even if you never meet your donor. And that's, across the board. You can write a letter. You can give it to the transplant team, and they will get that letter. I know that Mark's family is working on that, right? And so even though that person may not respond, you still have an opportunity to express your gratitude, right? If somebody wants to remain anonymous. But I think, Ken, you hit on it. The bottom line is there's a lot of psychology and there are a lot of deep, deep human emotions and feelings on both sides, right? If you're waiting for a kidney, you get a kidney, and you're a person who gives the kidney. And I think it's just an individual decision for every person on whether or not they want somebody to know or not know, and sometimes people will then step forward. Not to put John on the spot, but John's in the back. Some of you have heard his story. He's waving. His donor was 8 weeks, John?
Yeah.
8 weeks. So she was anonymous, and then around 8 weeks, all of a sudden, John gets a message on his campaign page, right? On John's kidney trail. And she's like, I'm your donor. And John's like, what? And he's texting me, and it's crazy, right? And so the cool thing was we did get to hear her story. We did get to hear how she heard, and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, John, have we ever asked her why she waited the 8 weeks?
Well,
do we know?
No, I haven't really
Yeah,
asked that.
so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Again, what drove that decision for her, but it is the donor's decision at the end of the day. So maybe at some point you'll be able to stand up there and say, we know who it is, but you may not.
There you go.
Yeah, you might still find out.
Yeah, right.
But I totally understand what you said about scratching your head trying to figure out who could this be. We went through the exact same thing for 8 weeks. Who could this be?
Well, your wife was all over the hospital trying to figure out who it was.
We had all these theories going, but it turned out to be somebody we didn't know.
I met your wife evening of hope. She's resourceful.
Yeah, that's right.
But there are even stories of, say a friend or even a family member that doesn't want the person to know. They have a separate waiting room for that family so that you aren't sitting in the same, right, same waiting room and going, oh, well, Ken, why are you here today, right?
Nothing.
Yeah. Right? So, they've got it all figured out. If somebody wants to remain anonymous, they have it all figured out on how to do that. So, yeah. Anything else for Ken?
I got one. This is for you, actually, I guess. Well, whoever can answer. I'm on 2 transplant lists. One at Ohio State, one at Christ. What, since I'm coming here, I'm wanting a living donor. What if I get a call from them saying that there's a cadaver donor and I could have that right away? Is that an individual choice? You make the choice to go to that, or is it?
That's a great question. So,
because I thought about that for a
while. Yep. So that's a great question. That's a question that I do get asked a lot, right? Especially if you're listed at multiple centers or even one center, right? That you're in this active campaign looking for a living donor. We probably don't even know, right, who's been calling because it's all HIPAA protected. We don't know if somebody's testing or going through the process, and you get a call, right? that is something that you want to talk to your medical team, the transplant team about. You want to ask them questions like, what can you tell me about for a deceased donor? What can you tell me about the kidney, right? And this is another step that I encourage you guys to do. We've had a couple families that have done this. Call the other transplant center and ask, do you have anybody that is actively testing or is getting close, right? That could be a living donor. Because I feel like you deserve to have that information as a part of your decision-making process. And I know, again, sometimes, with HIPAA or whatever, they might be like, well, we can't tell you. But the 2 times that we've had that situation, the transplant center has told them, and they've said yes or no or whatever, and that's helped them make that decision. But we had somebody just a few weeks ago who got a call, and he started asking questions, and he was like, I'm not comfortable with this. He checked with his doctor. We're not a part of that decision. That was their decision to make, and he actually had a living donor approved today. Yeah. So, that really is it's a tough one. I mean, for those of you guys that have been waiting, I mean, that's a tough one, right? If you get a call and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? So that's just something you really want to talk to the team about. And I always feel like you'll know. You'll know.
You don't have a lot of time, right?
No.
You don't have a lot of time if it's, yeah. So, I mean, no, you do not have a lot of time. So you do kind of have to sort of think about that, right? I mean, I remember we struggled with that with my dad. Like, well, what are we going to do if we do get a call? And are we going to be willing to accept this kind of a kidney or this kind of a kidney? And, the call never came for us. I mean, we found a living donor before that, but that does happen. Yeah. Yeah, David.
So this actually came up because probably my high school best friend, he went to Taiwan right after graduation and whatnot. He just came back to see me. First time he seen me during this whole situation, because I see him every 5 years or so.
Okay.
And he was asking, is there any way that in the United States are you able to be on list internationally to get a kidney from another country or not? Because their medical over there is just a lot better than it's over here, so I wasn't sure.
So the answer to that is that the United States, we do not do Yes, we do not do international, right? So somebody could say, well, I'm going to go to another country, right? But in terms of, actually we just had somebody reach out the other day. They live in Fiji. Yeah. And they were like, I'm interested in being a living donor. And I was like, oh, yeah. No, I mean, you can't donate in Fiji, and then you do have to be really careful, because you could get people that reach out to you, and they could say, hey, I'm willing to donate my kidney. I live in another country. If you can pay my airfare and get me over here, guess what? You're never going to see the person again, right? So what I always say, if you get those kinds of things like, hey, I live here and I'm willing to donate my kidney, you just want to give them the phone number for the transplant center. And 99% of the time, they're not going to call the transplant center because they know. Yeah.
The reason I brought it up is his mom had to have a big knee surgery done.
Okay.
It was cheaper for her to pay for a flight to go there and back. Yeah. And get it done than it was with her insurance here.
Interesting. Yeah. The other thing you want to think about, right? The other thing you want to think about with a kidney transplant is, remember, when you get that kidney, it's not, I mean, you're on the next part of the journey, right? So if you get a kidney in another country and then you're back here, I don't even know you guys that are transplant recipients here, but I don't know what a hospital here would say. I don't know if they'd be like, Bob, do you know?
I do.
Oh, well, Bob, here.
Our favorite doctor, Dr. Kramer.
Let me give you the microphone just so you can.
So I was in office with Dr. Kramer while I was on dialysis, and we had this conversation about, hey, I heard, I'm Indian. I said, I heard that if I went to India, I could easily get a kidney. He goes, I've talked to many Indian patients that he has that actually went to India and got a kidney. And I asked him, I said, so when they come back, would you still be their doctor afterwards? And he said yes. So they would still take care of you, but they, obviously could not, guarantee the kidney of not having a disease and everything else. That's you going over there and getting a kidney and you're on your own.
You're on your own. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, good answer. That is interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Is it still on? Yeah, it is. Okay. Thank you, Bob. That was, that was something I didn't know. Yeah.
They probably don't put them through the rigid testing as they do here in the United States.
Yeah.
There was a doctor here who's retired now, who needed a liver, and he was French, and he went back to France. Then came here, back in after.
Interesting. Yeah.
It was quicker to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in some countries, there's a black market.
Yes,
Yeah, so just be careful. Be careful. Stay in the United States. That's what off the list says. Stay in the United States. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. This was. Can we give where's Ken? Can we give a round of applause for Ken? That was awesome. Ken, thank you so much. And you guys, if you've got other questions for him or want to pick his brain on something, we thank you just for all that information. It was awesome.